Good evening and welcome. I'm Vincent Makori. This is Africa 54. Now, the election day is election day in Uganda, and within the last half hour, in most parts of the country, the deadline for voters to stand in line and cast their ballots in the presidential and parliament election has expired. Voters face long lines and delayed openings at some polling stations because of late ballot deliveries. President Yoweri Museveni is seen here arriving at last week's debate. Has been in power for 30 years. 7 candidates are challenging Museveni, most prominently opposition leader Kizza Besigye, who has lost to him 3 times in the past. Some voters say their priority is peace and stability for Uganda, while others hope for change and a new regime. Now, for the latest on the Ugandan election, the host of VOA Straight Talk Africa program, Shaka Sali, joins me by phone from Kampala. Good evening, Shaka.
Good evening, Vincent, or in fact, good morning or good afternoon. Good morning, in fact.
Exactly. Now, in Kampala, we're getting some news there. Can you update us, especially regarding Mr. Kizza Besigye?
I gather that Kizza Besigye has been arrested in a place called Naguru, which is a suburb of the Ugandan capital, Kampala.
Well, we wonder why at this stage, but nevertheless, can you update us on how the turnout was for today's election?
Well, first of all, the turnout recent, from what I gather, was huge. There's no question that a lot of people came out today to cast their vote. But what is interesting is that places as far away as Kabale, for example, the Electoral Commission was able to do its job and deliver the ballot papers there. But when it comes to suburbs of Kampala, we're talking about Makerere University area, we're talking about Kawempe, we're talking about Mukono, we're talking about Kiburi, Entebbe. These are places that are near the capital Kampala, near the headquarters of the Electoral Commission, but the EC was unable to deliver the ballot papers on time. In some places, in fact, they delivered them in the afternoon, like 2 p.m., listen.
And we know that they did actually extend the voting time up to a few minutes ago. The question is, did they give an explanation for the delay, and was the extended time enough to make up?
That is what is still unknown, Vincent. Of course, the officials have already stated that they have extended the time up to 7 p.m. and in some other polling stations up to tomorrow. By the way, these are opposition strongholds. They're looking at around about 3 million voters in those particular areas.
And that is very significant. In terms of security, how has been the situation? People feared for violence.
Well, first of all, so far, at least the process really has been peaceful. The security forces are pretty much all over the place, in particular the police, some elements of the military and the crime preventers. People are worried, especially when the results begin to come in. People are so anxious because, man, there are 2 types of people here. There are those who want to continue with more of the same, and there are those, and especially the young, who are looking for change.
Well, Shaka, thank you very much. Shaka Sali, reporting live from Kampala, Uganda. Staying in Uganda now, according to a report in Thursday's Kenyan online newspaper, The Daily Nation, Uganda President Yoweri Museveni ordered the shutdown of multiple social media sites for national security reasons. Mr. Museveni says sites such as Facebook, Twitter, and WhatsApp were being used to peddle lies. Despite the shutdown, social media has become an important platform for Ugandans to talk about the state of their nation. This is Sejinho Roosblad reports from Kampala.
It has already been dubbed Uganda's first social media election. Many people, young and old, have taken to Twitter, Facebook and WhatsApp to give their opinions on the election campaigns and the candidates running for office. Various hashtags have been trending, but the most significant ones were hashtag Uganda Decides and hashtag UGDebate16. Daniel Mumbere, who's an avid social media user and presenter of the TV show Hashtag, has been very happy with the way Ugandans are engaging with politicians on social media.
I would have loved to see where we actually preempt them. We say, let's talk about hospitals today, and then they respond, but it's been the other way around. But I think ultimately it's a good start.
candidate Amama Mbabazi even announced his presidential bid on YouTube. Media trend watcher Angelo Isama says traditional media do not offer enough for young people who might be interested in the elections.
Traditional media just doesn't have the pace or the space to accommodate all the arguments. Most of the voters are born in the era of the mobile age, so it is generational conversation, which is also done through new technology, because the mobile phone is the default of the new generation.
Smartphones and social media could also be used to monitor polling stations. However, the Electoral Commission has already banned their use.
It's putting us in a position where we have to act extremely carefully, but also with recognizing that with the phone you can do just as much harm as you can do good.
These university students have been going around Kampala since late January with their on and offline campaign dubbed #IChoosePeaceUG.
I reach out to people, I take a photo, I ask them to take photos with them, and then upload on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, WhatsApp, and then a message is spread all over.
They hope to avert the violence that has been seen in previous elections in Uganda.
I'm looking at Uganda where after voting on Thursday, I go back to class on Friday. I don't want to find myself as a refugee in another country.
Social media in Uganda, it's trending. Serginho Roosblad for VOA News, Kampala.
Well, at least 53 people died in Ghana when a bus hit a truck head-on some 420 kilometers north of the capital, Accra, overnight, in the country's deadliest road crash in years. A regional police chief said the Metro Mass Transit coach was heading to the northern town of Tamale from the second-largest city of Kumasi when it collided with a cargo truck loaded with boxes of tomatoes. Ghana, like many other African countries, has a relatively high rate of road deaths due in part to narrow and poorly constructed roads, failure by drivers to respect speed limits, and inadequate vehicle maintenance. In East Africa, Kenya says it killed Al-Shabaab's intelligence chief and 10 others in an airstrike in southern Somalia. Kenya Defense Forces spokesman Colonel David Obonyo said on Thursday Mahdi Mohammed Karate, also the deputy commander of Al-Shabaab, was killed on February 8th in a Kenyan airstrike on a camp in Middle Juba region. Mahdi Karate is blamed for masterminding the deadly attack on a Kenya army base in El Ade last month that left dozens of Kenyan forces dead. Kenya says Karate had gone to the camp to preside over the graduation of an estimated 80 Al-Shabaab fighters who had completed their training and were due for deployment to carry out attacks. Sheikh Abisis Abu Musab, Al-Shabaab's military operations spokesman, said the group's fighters were targeted by a bombing, but Karate was not killed. Well, now to U.S. politics. A new poll says billionaire businessman Donald Trump remains the national frontrunner over other competitors for the Republican nomination for president. VOA's Jeff Custer has more.
The Quinnipiac University poll released Wednesday shows Trump with 39% support, followed by 19% for Florida Senator Marco Rubio and 18% for Texas Senator Ted Cruz. Speaking via Skype, Quinnipiac pollster Tim Malloy says the news continues to be good for Trump.
I think you could call it huge good news for Trump. He's moving ahead of the pack now, 2-1 over Cruz and Rubio. He's picked up 11% with women, 10% with non-college educated men. It's a freight train storming down the tracks right now.
On the Democratic side, poll results remained unchanged, with former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton in a virtual tie with Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders, who scored a sizable victory over Clinton in the New Hampshire primary election last week.
Bernie Sanders he had picked up almost more than 30 points from December on Hillary Clinton to pull up right dead even with her. He did that by pulling up great numbers with blacks and Hispanics. That's a big part of it, and with women. So that one right now, if the election were held today, is a dead heat.
South Carolina holds its Republican primary on Saturday, while Nevada holds a Democratic caucus the same day. Next week, Democrats compete in South Carolina and Republicans in Nevada. Jeff Custer, VOA News, Washington.
U.S. President Barack Obama is scheduled to visit Cuba next month. It's a major symbolic step in the warming of ties between the two Cold War foes. The Obama administration is formally announced the trip Thursday as part of the president's travels to Latin America. CNN reported the two-day visit is planned for March 21st and 22nd before the president flies to Argentina. President Obama's visit follows the reopening of the U.S. Embassy in Havana last year. And just last week, U.S. officials announced that people in the U.S. and Cuba soon will be able to fly on regularly scheduled commercial airlines between the two countries. Now, the aviation agreement is part of President Obama's outreach in 2014 to resume diplomatic relations with Cuba. Obama will be the first sitting U.S. president to visit Cuba in decades. Well, we want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. And check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Find me on Twitter at VOA Vincent Makori. Well, coming up, the U.S. role in the fight against malaria. Stay with us.
From science and technology, here's what's new.
There's nothing new about motorbikes. They've been around for over 100 years. It's what powers this one that makes it unique. It's water, just like what you drink. Brazilian inventor Ricardo Azevedo has developed a way to use water to fuel his custom motorcycle. He calls his invention Motopower H2O, and it works by using a car battery to electrically separate the water's hydrogen and oxygen atoms. The hydrogen is collected and then combusted in the motorcycle cylinders, just like gasoline. So water goes in and only oxygen comes out the tailpipe. It took Azevedo 6 months and cost around $1,500, but he says it's worth it. His water-powered motorbike can travel up to 500 kilometers using just 1 liter of water. And best of all, fill-up's a breeze. For What's New, I'm Doug Bernard.
Well, it's time for a health reporter. Joining us now is Africa 54 health correspondent Lino Mudu with the latest news on malaria. Hello, Lino.
Hello, Vincent. Malaria is a preventable and treatable disease. However, the illness kills roughly 500,000 people a year. Most are in sub-Saharan Africa and are under age 5. The disease is caused by Plasmodium parasites and transmitted through the bites of infected female Anopheles mosquitoes. Malaria can cause fever, headache, and vomiting, and can lead to death if it's not properly treated. The World Health Organization says malaria prevention measures such as bed nets and indoor and outdoor spraying have averted millions of deaths and saved millions of dollars in healthcare costs over the past 14 years across Africa. Worldwide incidence of the disease has declined 37% over the last 15 years, and deaths from malaria are down 60%. In Africa, annual malaria death has dropped from an estimated 764,000 in 2000 to 395,000 in 2015. But advocates say despite the progress, significant work remains to end malaria once and for all. Joining us via Skype from Seattle, Washington is Martin Edlund, CEO of Malaria No More, an international development organization that advocates for global malaria program. Mr. Edlund, welcome to the show.
Thanks very much. Thanks for having me.
So according to statistics, there have been some progress, obviously. What do you make of this progress?
I think we have to recognize this as one of the great success stories in global health. As you just pointed out, back in 2000, malaria was killing about 1 million people a year, 90% of those pregnant moms and kids in sub-Saharan Africa. Today, deaths have been cut 66% across the African continent, including 71% among kids. That's an estimated 6.2 million people that are alive today because of these interventions. So we've made tremendous progress. It's something that donors as well as African leaders should be tremendously proud of. But as you point out, we have more work to do. And in fact, we have the opportunity to end this disease if we seize it today.
So what will it take to end this disease? Recently, President Obama asked for a $71 million additional fund for the President Malaria Initiative, which will amount to a total of $745 million in the year 2017. What do you make of this?
So first of all, the U.S. has been a great partner to Africa in the malaria fight. Dating back to about 2005, President Bush established the President's Malaria Initiative and also was the lead supporter in the Global Fund to fight AIDS, TB, and malaria. That was really the spark that started the progress that we just described. The good news is this is not a partisan issue. This is something that has spanned administrations, that has crossed party lines. It's something that President Obama has taken up in a high-profile way. As you just mentioned in the State of the Union, he recognized that we have the opportunity to end malaria this generation, and it's something he just asked Congress to fund in an increased way. Now, on the other side of that, we're seeing African leadership step up as never before. 5 years ago, African leaders banded together into something called the African Leaders Malaria Alliance. It's now 49 African heads of state that have committed to end deaths and ultimately eradicate the disease. So it's a great example of the partnership between the U.S. and Africa.
And quickly, before we end, because we're running out of time, it takes a leadership, of course, and clear goals when we talk about eradicating a disease. What are some of the goals, if you can just name a couple of them quickly?
Sure. The highest level goal is to end this disease in the next 25 years. If we do that, it would save an additional 11 million lives, avert 4 billion cases, and unlock $2 trillion in economic benefits for the world, most of that in Africa. So it's a big, ambitious goal, but it's something we can achieve.
It's not impossible. How do we keep the momentum going?
Well, leadership is key. Just a couple of weeks ago at the African Union, former Tanzanian President Jakaya Kikwete and Prime Minister Haile Mariam launched an op-ed, and they said that it wasn't long ago that an Africa without malaria seemed an impossible dream. Today, that dream's becoming a reality thanks to the most powerful weapon we have in the malaria fight, strong leadership. Okay. I think that's the first key. We need funding, we need innovation, but the good news is the tools are on the way to make that possible.
And we're going to have to leave it there. Mr. Edlund, thank you so much for joining us. And that was Martin Edlund, CEO of the International Development Organization, Malaria No More. Now, turning to another troubling disease, the World Health Organization says the best way to avoid being infected with Zika virus is to prevent mosquito bites. Health officials from the U.S., Brazil, and other affected countries have told members of the United Nations Economic and Social Council that worldwide efforts are focused on surveillance, response, and research. Here is VOA's Latika Hook.
Health officials say that Zika is not a new virus. It was discovered in 1947 in Uganda and has not affected humans until the 1960s. The symptoms it caused were often mistaken for dengue or chikungunya, but a large number of infections since last year has revealed new manifestations of the virus.
The situation is rapidly changing, as everyone is probably aware, and as a result, we're learning about Zika on an almost daily basis.
More research is needed to determine if Zika may cause serious birth defects such as microcephaly or abnormally small heads in babies, and neurological and other diseases. Officials say for now they are focusing their efforts on cutting down mosquito populations and educating people on how to protect themselves. A delegate from Haiti expressed concern that Zika virus may have a devastating effect on his impoverished country.
In terms of funding, we have a bit of an emergency, seeing as we're coming towards the end of the dry season. And while there haven't been very many reported infections, we believe that with the rainy season starting as early as next month, we are probably going to see a lot more infection from the Zika virus and indeed other mosquito-borne diseases.
The World Health Organization estimates it will cost $53 million to address the situation worldwide.
On the research and development, there are a couple of directions also where we are working. On the vaccine development, we are mapping current efforts on development of the candidate vaccines. It will still take some months before we are going to have the vaccine, but the work is quite advanced already by 2 manufacturers.
Research is also underway to develop a genetically modified male mosquito that will produce weak larvae when mating with wild female mosquitoes. That would significantly reduce the mosquito population. Zlatica Hoke, VOA News, Washington.
And that's our Africa Health Report for today. Vincent?
Well, Lino, thanks a lot, and be sure to watch Lino Mudu's Health Report every Tuesday and Thursday right here on Africa 54. Well, Well, in today's part 2 of our series on how innovation is being used for development and emergency support, we'll look at stressed populations in post-disaster and post-war and or impoverished situations. Viewers, Caroline Turner has more.
When disaster strikes, electric power often is interrupted completely or lost for days or weeks, which complicates the difficult job of emergency response teams. Alternative power sources are needed until the system can be restored. Diesel and gasoline generators are often available, but they rely on a continuous supply of fuel, and often the emergencies outlast the supply. If there is no stable power grid, other solutions can all play a role as an alternative power source. One power generator on display at the Star Tides Expo is the zero-base energy hybrid power source that can create electricity from many different resources. James Pompilio explains.
Basically, what you're looking at is a mobile storage device, lithium iron phosphate batteries, charged with solar panels. You can charge this via an existing diesel generator. This unit happens to have a diesel generator on deck here. We can charge power from a wall. Whatever power units you have, you can charge these batteries. This is a ballistic grade panel. This can take rounds. It's not glass, it's a microcrystalline structure. It'll take rounds. This particular unit, once it's part of it has been destroyed, it'll still produce power.
In sub-Sahara Africa, zero-base power sources are providing electricity to remote communities to improve stability and reduce dependence on fossil fuels. Last year in Tanzania, the primary school installed a hybrid K-series power system, which is a low-maintenance solution specially designed for Africa.
You can plug into an existing solar array if you have one that's on top of a building or in a field somewhere. However you decide to charge these devices, this just comes with its mobile charging. You could even power it off of a wind, whatever you needed.
In 2014 in northern Kenya, the remote community of Les Amis depends on the diesel power station for electrical power. To save fuel costs, Zero Base installed a 100-kilowatt microgrid system to integrate 300 solar panels and a bank of batteries.
We have small man-portable units that can be dropped into different zones, put in the back of vehicles. Hybrid vehicles like this that can be mobile all the way up to full-on microgrids powering small villages in Nigeria, and there's even been a project with USAID in Haiti.
In 2010, following the disastrous earthquake in Haiti, Zero Base donated 2 H-series systems to the rehabilitation efforts. Later, in 2012, they launched Haiti's first micro-utility in the remote village of Les Anglais.
To power the microgrid, we've installed 300 solar panels on a ground mount array and 72 panels on 2 roofs and the market structures in the back. The hub of our system is a 100 kilowatt power management system with 400 kilowatt hours of battery storage and a 30 kilowatt diesel genset for backup.
For people who have never had electricity, the microgrid in Haiti was introduced with a small amount of power for all customers so they could slowly learn new ways to use it. Carolyn Turner, VOA News.
Well, in tomorrow's series finale, we'll look at the new medical technology that can help aid workers virtually transport hospital-level capability to the field. Well, it's now time for a short break. Still to come on Africa 54. A fashion line promotes Africa's chic side. We'll be right back.
If you've just joined us, I'm Mariama Diallo, and here is a quick recap of today's headlines. In Uganda, voting starts in the presidential poll, but hundreds of voters experienced long delays due to voting materials not arriving at polls on time in the capital, Kampala. In Libya, thousands celebrate the 5th anniversary of the February revolution that toppled Muammar Gaddafi in Tripoli's Martyrs Square. In Mali, 6 bodies of UN peacekeepers killed in an Islamist attack arrive in Conakry, and President Alpha Conde welcomes them back. Finally, in Zimbabwe, former Vice President Joyce Majuru forms an opposition political party to challenge President Robert Mugabe. That's all for today. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
Welcome back to Africa 54. Here's what's trending. Anna Getane and her staff iron out final details on outfits before fashion show at her studio in Addis Ababa. And the former international supermodel who walked the runways of Paris and New York in the 1990s and featured in top fashion magazines like Vogue is now a designer and entrepreneur on a mission to promote high-end African fashion. The designer says she wants to help develop Africa's fashion industry by pushing more designers to build luxury brands at home. The proceeds of the event are normally used to educate needy children in the country. Anna says she and her team are currently working on establishing a designing center in Ethiopia to focus on growing demand for unique outfits on the continent. Well, next up, Barcelona striker Lionel Messi was back on the training pitch after helping his team win 6-1 against Celta Vigo over the weekend. In a light-hearted kick around, Italian musician Eros Ramazzotti challenged the Argentinian to score from 25 meters behind the byline. Now, the four-time Ballon d'Or winner managed to curl the ball with his left foot from behind the goal into the back of the net. Not surprisingly, video of the outrageous goal has gone viral. Well, and finally, you're looking at one of the most exclusive goodie bags in the world. Female Oscar nominees and actresses, including Amy Schumer and Angelina Jolie, will be able to enjoy the contents of a gift bag worth over $22,000 during this year's movie awards season. Items in this particular goodie bag include a trip to Antigua, a hotel booking savings card, a golf course savings card, as well as snacks, giving a strong travel theme to the gift bag. The value of the items range from $4,000 to $6,000. One gift bag will also go on auction to raise money for women's cancer research. And that is what is trending today. And also, that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. For more news, tune in to VOA's radio show Africa News Tonight at 1800 UTC. In the mornings today, break Africa between 0300 and 0600 UTC, Mondays for Friday. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.
Welcome to the Voice of America's News Words.
Does this word mean something good has happened?
Unleashed. The president is sending Secretary of State John Kerry to the Middle East to help build a coalition to defeat the militants who have unleashed a wave of violence that has included attacks on Iraq's Christians and other minority communities, and recently the videotaped killing of American journalist James Foley.
Unleashed means to let something very powerful happen quickly.
It is like taking a leash off a dog and letting it attack someone. In our story, the militants unleashed or set off a wave of violence.
Usually, unleashed does not mean something good.
So, the next time you hear the word unleashed, you will know what this news word means.